Lions fans, there's still hope. There's still hope for you. Yeah, Calvin Johnson has been invited back to training camp for the Detroit Lions. Now, I know you guys really enjoyed the last Calvin Johnson video, and I really enjoyed making it. Like I said, he's my favorite player in NFL history, and I want to do as many videos on the man Megatron as possible. And I'm doing this one in a little bit different format because you guys said you wanted something on in the background other than this face. Like, you wanted something like gameplay on in the background, so I'm going to be giving you that. So if you enjoy this new format, definitely make sure to drop a like down below. Any new stories that revolve around Megatron and this type of stuff, I'll be sure to bring them out to you. Before we get into the meat and potatoes of this video, I just want to read a couple excerpts from this article. As you guys can see from reading the article, Calvin Johnson, he was invited back to training camp in Detroit. Calvin was asked about his retirement and he responded with this: "Of course I thought about it. Just like in basketball, you know, guys, they create these super teams, but it's not quite like that in football where I had the freedom to just go." Calvin Johnson also stated that he didn't like talking to the Lions very much because of the way the relationship ended. Calvin was forced to pay back at least $1 million of his signing bonus due to his retirement. As you guys can see, Calvin Johnson, he was invited back to training camp in order to amend the relationship between those two parties. Now, if you guys are smart, which I think that you are, the real question you should be asking yourself is why? In my opinion, there's a couple reasons. The number one reason is I think that the Detroit Lions honestly doubt the reason for Calvin Johnson retiring. Now, as many of you guys know, Calvin Johnson stated that the reason he wanted to retire was because of injuries, probably concussion type injuries. And so when Megatron said that to the Detroit Lions organization, Detroit was like, you know what? Okay, all right, we'll let it slide. And so they let him retire. And now that Calvin Johnson has made these comments about possibly wanting to come back and play in the NFL, Detroit's like, yo, we still got your contract, so what's up? I think that Detroit is trying to show off their newfound success, their new squad. Matt Stafford has been playing unbelievable. Their defense, it's not terrible. The O-line is not terrible. They're a pretty damn good team that had a winning record last year. So I think Detroit wants to invite Calvin Johnson back to training camp and be like, yo, hey, check out the new digs. Check out the new squad. You see Stafford, he's playing pretty well. Now, here's the thing. In my opinion, I don't know if Calvin Johnson is going to come back to the NFL because it really seems like Detroit wants him to either come back to Detroit, come back to the Lions, or not come back at all. I think if Detroit were to make some crazy moves and possibly acquire some really, really good stars, maybe Calvin Johnson would want to play for them, but I truly don't see him wanting to come back to Detroit. And if he's not able to come back to Detroit, well, then that means he's not going to be able to come back to any NFL team because, as you guys know, the Detroit Lions still have Calvin Johnson's right to the contract, so he can't play for any other team. Now, one thing to think about is that the Detroit Lions, they're actually being somewhat thoughtful in this process. They're bringing Megatron back. They're like, listen, we know we messed up. We know we treated Barry Sanders bad. We don't want this same situation to happen between you and us. So they bring him back to training camp. They show him the team. They show him the organization. They show him the new culture of winning. And they say, Calvin, you sure you don't want to play for our team still? And I think if there's any inkling that Calvin Johnson wants to come back and play in the NFL, I think he will come back and play in the NFL. There's no doubt in my mind that he has the talent to do it. I know he can still come back. I know he can. You're not telling me that there's not a couple receivers that are not better than Calvin Johnson. Calvin Johnson would still be able to come into this league and be probably like a top 25 wide receiver, which is still a beastly player. The real question is Calvin Johnson going to be able to get out of his contract in Detroit? And I really doubt that's going to happen. On the highest of keys, what I'm hoping is that Detroit realizes, okay, there's no way Calvin's going to come back and play for our team. So you know what? If we just trade him for a draft pick, we'll essentially get something for nothing, whether it's a 4th round pick or even a 2nd or 3rd round pick, which I think would be unbelievably high. If they could just get a draft pick or maybe a player or something just in exchange for Calvin Johnson, that would make Calvin Johnson be able to play on a team that he wants, and Detroit Lions would be able to get a draft pick for essentially nothing. So again, this is pretty crazy news, pretty crazy stuff. There is a very real chance, a very real possibility that Calvin Johnson could be back in an NFL uniform in the next couple years. The only thing Calvin needs to do is essentially iron out the relationship between the organization and the player that is Megatron. If he can do that and he can find a way to get out of his contract or get traded to another team, guys, we can have Calvin Johnson back in the NFL. The fact that there's actual news stories about this makes me think that there is a real chance. And whether it's a 5% chance or a 10% chance, you guys might say, well, that's super slim. You know what? It's still a chance. Hopefully you enjoyed this new format of the video. Like I said, any types of videos like these, I love putting them out. I love doing them. I'll be sure to put gameplay in the background like I did in this one from now on. If you did enjoy, make sure to drop a like down below, subscribe if you are new, and guys, I'll see you in my next upload. Peace.
I'm so